Welcome everyone to the week of November 20th through 24th of the CFO Swinger Watch newsletter. My name is Andrew, the founder of CFO, and happy early Thanksgiving. So just like I said in the newsletter, I'll keep this technical analysis video of the newsletter short and simple. So with that, let's take a look at the markets. So what we have here is the S&P 500 SPY. Now, a lot of people have been very, very bearish as we've been moving up, and rightfully so, because we have hit a major milestone in this huge run up in the last 2.5 weeks. So with this V-shaped recovery, we have basically at least recovered around 75 to 80% of the move down, the actual 10% correction that we started since we formed that top or high of 2023 back in late July. So, with this type of a run up, right, we do need consolidation. However, if you guys have been seeing and watching my lives from last week, you guys remember that having these gap ups are not bad, right? It's really good for bulls. However, yes, we do need a solid pullback that gives us at least a week or two of consolidation before we make a longer term move up higher. However, in the short term, we need to start looking at things a little bit differently because the price has continued to stay up here. Right? It hasn't gone down that we wanted to see. We haven't seen a retest of previous resistance levels or at least a simple gap fill. So we need to change our perspective in the short-term time frame. And so what is this change? All right. So as you guys can clearly see, this 451.50 level has been a resistance level for most of last week. And last Tuesday, I did tell you guys that the market can try to, shoot up to around 450 to 451 before seeing any type of a large reaction to the downside. And so we got the first part where we retested this 450 to 451 area precisely at 451.50, but we haven't seen a large reaction to the downside, a nice rejection from this resistance area or at this resistance level at 451.50. So what do we do now here? All right, what are we supposed to do? Well, I think we need to continue to lean bullish. And the reason why I say that is that, it looks like the market bulls are really gunning for a retest of at least 456, which was a major level of resistance that we formed when we were sitting at the highs of this year. Or we could also be gunning towards the high of this year. So that 459.44 number that I've been telling you guys about for the past couple of weeks could be the actual point where we see that actual rejection and then the official pullback. All right, before we start to see some sort of consolidation before we move up higher into the end of the year and into next year. Now, what's interesting is that, with this large move up from the transition of October to November has been so incredible that it's been making people skeptical in its ability to continue to run up. I've been getting skeptical as well, which is the reason why I've been calling for some sort of a pullback for us to have a healthy run back up, and we haven't seen that yet. So, in my opinion, we need to be seeing just sideways movement and just taking out the fact that we won't be seeing a pullback, an actual big pullback to the downside, and instead we're just going to see sideways movement before we make another higher high and higher low. And I think that's going to be the continuous pattern as we head into Thanksgiving week, okay, which starts tomorrow. And usually we tend to get some very, very bullish movement going into Thanksgiving, right? So if we factor that in now, that as a catalyst into this current price action in the S&P 500, I can at the very least assume that the price is going to break over 451.50 and continuously head up higher even with low volume, right? So again, just like I said on Thursday's live stream of last week, Friday's OPEX wasn't too significant, right? We did get some very tight price action. We got a lot of micro volatility on the intraday time frame, a lot of choppiness, just like we did on Thursday. But overall, OPEX wasn't as significant as most people were expecting it to be. Yes, we did get an increase in volume, but again, that was just because of OPEX, right? We have everything kind of expiring simultaneously at market close. So, overall, I think OPEX didn't do much for the price action. Yes, we did get an injection of volume, but that was just from OPEX. It didn't really mean much. So, at the very least, we can continue to follow the trend, which is to the upside, and see if the market breaks over 451.50 this week, maybe even tomorrow, and head up into this 456 resistance level. All right. But on the other hand, if 451.50 proves to be too much of a heavy seller area, a huge supply area, then we will definitely see a rejection and we'll see a pullback at least into this daily 10 SMA, my daily 10 SMA, which is my red line here. And this daily 10 SMA has been trying to catch up, but the price continuously moves up pretty rapidly. So, we haven't gotten a retest of this 10 SMA ever since we've initially retested and reclaimed and bounced on the 10 SMA on November 1st, on the first day of this month. So, this rapid move up again is going to be, give us that eventually a large pullback that we want, but it's just not the price is telling us that the time is not there yet for us to see a pullback. All right, that's essentially what the price is telling us. All right, so with that in mind, okay, if you do see a pullback in the longer term perspective, at the very least we can still see a gap fill of this specific area from last week. Okay, this is where we got that CPI report. Okay, from Monday to Tuesday. All right, so with that, let's take a look at our first name. So IQ, all right, Ichiyi. Okay, that's the, I believe I said that correctly, but if not, my apologies. So IQ here, the Netflix of China, I've always mentioned his name. I have been keeping my eye on this for the last couple of weeks. And the reason why is that we have been seeing a pretty good consolidation for about 13 weeks here on the weekly and on the daily. So about 13 weeks. And the reason why I'm also showing you guys the MACD, the MACD indicator is that this entire consolidation since we started this year, actually, has been building up this huge amount of energy that's waiting to break out. And the MACD is literally showing us that type of a breakage point in that energy. And last week, we got that little pop as these lines are starting to have a nice upward crossover. And so we haven't seen this crossover ever since we made this initial crossover back in 2022, when we made that official all-time low pivot point at that $2 support level. And ever since then, the MACD has been holding over this pivot low point in the MACD, the MACD. And so whenever I see this happening, and the fact that we're officially seeing a crossover to the upside on the MACD lines here, tells me that the price is not willing to move lower anymore. And in fact, we're about to see some sort of a large squeeze point where the price decides to break out with all of that cooped up energy that we've gotten from just this entire year's alone consolidation, right? So, in order for us to see a very large breakout, this weekly consolidation needs to show that, yes, the price is ready to break out of this tight consolidation and show and prove to us that, yes, there is bullish momentum, just like we saw with this crossover last week in the MACD. Okay, and obviously they did this little pop in price as well. So with that in mind, if you go back on the daily time frame, we also have earnings. Yes, we have earnings on Tuesday, which will mean that the price can see a run up into earnings, and that is the reason why I give you guys this first early entry over $5.20, which is the major resistance level for this daily consolidation that we started back in the end of August here, right back when we had that previous earnings result. So, with this good amount of consolidation after a bad earnings reaction, the previous earnings report as well tells me that the price really doesn't want to go anywhere. Obviously, because of consolidation, that's essentially what it means. And at the same time, the price is telling us that it's not trying to react to that previous earnings report. And instead, it could be potentially waiting on this next quarterly earnings report. And so, I have some sort of a slight bias and a slight confidence. It's kind of a mix of both, essentially. And what I'm essentially trying to tell you guys is that this name can be seeing a breakout using the earnings reaction to the earnings report. So, based on those contracts that I gave you in the newsletter, I may just hold into earnings as well, based on how it does tomorrow, and based on whether or not I do get an entry point over 5.20. Now, obviously, if earnings report goes bad and we don't see much of a reaction and maybe even a slight reaction to the downside, I'm going to expect the price to do exactly what it has been doing for the past 2 months here, moving sideways between 450 and 5.20. Okay, or if you guys want to put it simply, $4.50 and $5. Right, if you want to use whole numbers here. So again, I'm not too worried if it does that after earnings report, but based on how it reacts tomorrow, I'll be looking to get an entry point over 5.20, which is again an early entry point. But if you guys want to wait, look for an entry point over $5.50, which is the next whole number resistance level. And also, once we are past this horizontal level, we should be going past and breaking out of this macro descending resistance trend line. Okay, so you guys should have been able to spot this and where it comes from on the weekly time frame. All right, so we have been following this trend line for this entire year. Okay, so that's the reason why I decided to look at this Chinese name, because it has been holding in this explosive energy for this entire year, and I want to be a part of that when we see that breakout of that energy. All right, so our second name for the week is Tesla. So Tesla is looking quite interesting, and I gave you guys the reasons in the newsletter, so make sure you guys read that first. But Tesla here has been showing some pretty good price action, and even just last week, this price volatility, this price range that we got between 226.54 at the lows and 237.39 at the highs has gotten me very interested for this week, for even just a day trade or even a scalp. So on the 2-hour time frame, what we're seeing here is a classic higher highs and higher lows price pattern. Okay, so if I give you guys a visual here of what I'm saying, okay, very, very simple, right? So based on what we have here, okay, higher highs and higher lows, which is a textbook uptrend, I am going to be expecting this week for us to make another attempt to run up higher on top of that catalyst that I talked about in the newsletter. And so, if we're able to hold last Friday's lows, which was at 226.55, which is also a new support level, we should be able to at least retest 230.80, okay, as a new level of support if we decide to pull back tomorrow, bounce on top of this, and then move back up. And so if it does that, I'll be watching closely for an early entry point at 236.10. Okay, this is a very early entry point. And why 236.10? Because on the 2-hour time frame, the price will be eventually over the 2-hour 10 SMA. And why do I want the price to be over the 2-hour 10 SMA? Well, because that's going to tell me that the price will be willing to move up higher and continuously moving up higher and continuously following this price structure or price path. Okay, so now ideally tomorrow I would really want the price to hold over the 2-hour 21 SMA as well, just like it did last Friday when we broke below it very quickly, and then we immediately pivoted off of 226.50, and then we reclaimed the 2-hour 21 SMA, my light blue line here. Okay, so on Monday I want us to see that confirmation of that retest and reclaim of the 2-hour 21 SMA so that we can break over 236 and over that 2-hour 10 SMA. Okay, now obviously if you don't want to be filled with stress trying to figure out if the price is going to break over 236 and also on top of that over the 2-hour 10 SMA, then you can just simply wait. All right, and you guys can wait for the official entry point over 242.10. And why 242? Well, that was the that maximum top range of this gap fill that we eventually filled in last week. Okay, thankfully to that CPI report that really just rocketed share prices across the equity markets. Right, so again, 242 will be our official entry point for confirmation breakout to the upside, and obviously a continuation of this price path or price structure. And eventually, I want the price to hit around 252 and maximum this descending resistance trend line. Right, and I know you guys are seeing this everywhere because I'm seeing it everywhere, but we've been seeing these macro descending resistance trend line everywhere, right? So Tesla here as well. I want the 252 resistance level coinciding with this macro descending resistance trend line. All right. Okay, so that is our maximum profit target for whatever entry that we get this week, especially that 236.10 early entry point. All right. And last but not least, we have you. Not you guys, but you. Right, Unity Software. So this one has gotten me very, very interested because of the fact that the price literally avoided making new lows on earnings day and the earnings day's reaction. Okay, so as indicated by this arrow here, okay, and obviously by this arrow that I'm just drawing for you guys now, okay, we have made a higher low from all-time low. So obviously that's not looking good, right? We want to be looking at charts that are near all-time highs so that we can see a continuation of that uptrend, because that's exactly what tends to happen on average. But what I'm trying to look for here is a reversal to the upside. And so far, we have gotten that reversal after this massive move from nearly all-time lows and the fact that we continued to run up to the upside, breaking the previous high pivot point on this candlestick right here. All right, and so we broke that this pivot high point on this day of last week on Tuesday. Again, that CPI report really helped a lot of names here. So with this beaten down name, I want to be able to capture some long-term gains on Unity. And so I gave you guys an early entry point at 29.10. So if I go on the intraday time frame, on the 2-hour time frame, this whole number level at $29 is pretty intriguing because it also kind of looks like what we just saw on Tesla, right? So what we have here is another potential higher highs and higher lows price structure, right? And so basically at 29, I really want the price to hold at this 29 whole number level on top of the 2-hour 21 SMA. And once it does that, I want the price to break over the 2-hour 10 SMA, my red line here. So the price is getting squeezed as it's stuck right in between these two momentum SMAs, which I really like to see. And so if we're able to see that energy breaking out and over both of the 10 and 21 SMAs on the 2-hour time frame, then we can get a very good entry point at 29.10, or simply, if you guys want to keep it very, very simple, over that $30. Okay, so 30.20 will be your official confirmation long entry point for this name. Now, with that in mind, okay, if we take a look at the MACD on the weekly time frame, all right, the MACD has recovered a lot, right, and it's telling us that selling is really slowing down after we made that highs back in mid-July here, right, back in Q3. So obviously this one has taken quite a beating here as it's been moving down ever since then, that pivot high point. And so I love the fact that the MACD has been holding after making that really big low back in around the same time, back in midsummer of last year. Okay, so I kind of overlaid this for so that you guys can see it here. Okay, so basically, all right, I love the fact that the MACD has recovered and we're making higher lows on the MACD. All right, so the momentum is slowly recovering, which could give us room for us to be in this name for a long time, for this one to start recovering back to the upside, back into the 40s, back to the pivot high point that we got, or the high pivot points, plural, that we got back in mid-July or midsummer here. Okay, so with that, our profit targets for you is going to be around the 31.50 to 33 area for the short term here. Okay, now in the long term, again, I really want us to see us retesting that 40s area. All right, I want us to come back into the supply area, specifically 42 to around 48. It's a huge supply area that I really want us to retest in the long term run. Okay, now that's if and only if we see that a long term run happening. Okay, and the momentum officially turning bullish, short term and long term. All right, so that is it for this week. Hopefully, again, you guys have a blessed Thanksgiving week. Hopefully, you guys are spending it with your loved ones, family and friends, and etc. And yeah, hopefully we end this year very, very strong as well. And I'm very thankful for you guys for staying with me for this entire year. But I'm just really thankful from the bottom of my heart. Right? I have nothing much more to say. I'm absolutely grateful and thankful for you guys for all the love and support that you have shown me. And I'm really glad that you guys are using my applicable analysis to the best of your abilities. All right, so hopefully that continues into the end of the year and into next year as well. All right, I'll see you guys tomorrow morning. Have a great rest of your night. And I'll see you guys all next week in the next week's technical analysis video.